Good day, Chief here. Like I said, I'm wrapping up my tour of duty at Medina. And a couple weeks ago I talked about how wonderful my battalion commander was. And I told you about our brigade commander. When I originally got there, our higher up brigade headquarters was at another location. And they closed it down and then they moved to Fort Sam, which I consider in southeast San Antonio, because I live here in the southwest, and so is Medina and Lackland. I'll be polite. This guy was a royal pain. He loved to run, and he also did one or two tours in Iraq. Because every time that he would get us officers together and we would run, if any of the officers failed in the run, and he wouldn't single them out. He would wait till everybody got together and then he would always go, "That will get you killed in Iraq." I got so tired of hearing that. You know, the lack of running is going to get me killed in Iraq. Isn't it the bombs, the bullets, and everything else that causes death and destruction? But that was always his argument. Now, I told you about the previous thing where we were supposed to go over to Fort Sam and only the 314th MI battalion showed up and he had a conniption fit. So while we were there, he did a run at Camp Bullis. Camp Bullis is in the northwest part of San Antonio, and he started in the kind of in the middle of Camp Bullis, and we ran out the gate, and it's kind of wavy getting out to the gate, and then it gets flat, and then there's this point. I should have looked it up, I guess, but there's this high point where he ran us up and then ran back. So overall, I think it was like 5 miles. And yes, I can still run, but old age is creeping up on me, and sometimes slopes just wear me out. I didn't drop out, but I faded back. But I ran up, ran down, and one of the younger captains, he was hurting worse than I was. And I stayed with him, he stayed with me, and we completed the run. And of course, we got that infamous speech at the tail end of this, like, "That will get you killed in Iraq." Because what, we can't run? Yeah, that makes us lesser of a soldier. And then once again, the 314th shined at this run because Colonel Smith said, "Hey, not unless you're in the hospital or TDY, you can't miss out on that run." So our numbers outnumbered his staff again, almost by 3 times over. And he was like looking at his staff, the 314th, and Colonel Smith was just eating us up because, once again, we did not fail. His staff did. And we distinctively ran in those 2 sections, brigade staff and the 314th. And of course, like I said, we outnumbered his. And he loved to run. And then, for Christmas, now, ever since I was in the military, I always heard about how these officers would have a Christmas occasion where you would wear your class uniform, your dress-up uniform, your Class Bs, or I mean not your Class Bs, your blues or your Class As, and generally you would wear your blues, and you would have a set time to go over to his house along with maybe 4 or 5 other officers. You'd be there for like a half hour just to nibble a little bit, meet everybody, and then filter out because the next group would show up. Nope. This guy decided that he would have a barbecue. So us warrant officers got together collectively, at least in the 314th. We all talked to Murph. He says, "Okay, this is how we're going to dictate this memo back to him." We all declined. All of us warrant officers declined. Oh no, it became mandatory. Once again, if you're not TDY or dying in a hospital, you can't miss out on this barbecue. And he wanted to show off because he bought one of those barbecues that you have to tow. It's got like 2 or 3 55-gallon drum type things that lift up, and then he can smoke and all that, and you know, chimney at the tail end, and you have, like I said, you have to tow this thing behind a vehicle. So he bought one and wanted to show it off. So we showed up. And instead of being in army dress up, no, casual. I was disappointed for that fact alone, besides having to mandatorily go there. So we got there, and once again, Colonel Smith and the 314th outshined his group. Some guys failed to bring their wives. Some brought their wives, because some of us were just like, well, we'll show up, stay long enough to eat, and then pay our respects and leave. But when we get over there, oh no, nothing. The main dish is not ready yet, because he's still got his pride and joy cooking it. And so we had to hang around for at least about an hour and a half. And we're just like, and he lived on base on Fort Sam Houston, so yeah. So we had to cordially not drink to excess, because nothing worse than getting drunk on a military establishment and trying to have to drive away. Not that that was our purpose to do that anyway. Once again, he filtered out his army. He always favored his staff. He would go talk to his staff officers, and he might come around and like maybe shake a hand or two of the 314th. Of course, Colonel Smith, he had to, because he had to pay respect at least to one of his battalion commanders. And but he would just ignore us warrant officers. So finally the food was prepped. I mean, yeah, we met the wife. There was no serving, no service line to shake hands and introduce. None of that. He just said, okay, now that I've taken head count, so to speak, I know who's naughty and nice, so to speak. I mean, he didn't say those words, but we can finally eat. Because I guess he was satisfied that enough officers had shown up so we could finally eat. So we ate. All of us warrant officers from 314th, greatest share of us, we stayed together as a group, like we do. And we ate, checked our watches, hung around a little bit, talked a little bit, and finally Murph goes, okay guys, not all at once, but we can leave. I think he went over and talked to Colonel Smith to see if it was okay to depart, to say our thank you for hosting this and saying goodbye. Now, another incident that I'll have with this colonel, as I said, that section that I worked in, then when he finally showed up, one of his sergeants from his unit, the headquarters part, came over and worked with us occasionally. So there I am sitting at my desk, and this sergeant is sitting immediately to my right. One desk over, one section over, and the colonel shows up and starts talking to this sergeant. So I'm like, oh, who's he talking to? So I look over, it's our wonderful battalion or brigade commander. How you doing today, sir? He doesn't even look up to acknowledge me that I said anything to him. I'm like, okay, you're a dickhead. Did I say that out loud? I meant it. So that's how, and then all of a sudden I looked over and he was gone. He didn't talk to any of the rest of us, because there was like I said, there was 3 warrant officers, but we weren't part of his. And I went to Colonel Smith, and I said, Colonel, I would like to have an end of tour award of an MSM, a Meritorious Service Medal. And he goes, why? I said, well, sir, not that I'm saying I deserve it, but however, I've done the best that I can do with what I have. And I went beyond it a couple times, especially help running this section, because there were times that, for reasons I can't talk about, I did shine. I did do something unexpected and not particularly related to the job, but it helped the job by getting services or something else to influence our work. So I went out of my way, like a warrant officer is supposed to. And the colonel says, okay, sounds good. So he wrote it up, and then he went to Murph because he knew the power of Murph. And Murph checked it. He says, yep, this is an MSM, because I already got a couple of them. And it got downgraded by the brigade commander because why? I didn't work for him over at Fort Sam. He did that to the greatest share of the awards for the battalion. But if you worked over at Fort Sam, oh, you got the recognition that you deserve because he could see you on a daily basis, so to speak. Well, when you were available to be seen. So, like I said, this is the worst brigade commander I'll serve under. Later on, I heard that he retired and he put himself in a position where he almost got kicked out of a country because he tried to, because now he was like a civilian contractor, I believe, and he was trying to still act like he was still in the service. He was still a full bird colonel, and this country he was serving in basically said, you're a civilian, we don't care what you say. That's a rumor I got, but if it's true, it kind of made me chuckle on the inside because that was his character. I don't know if he was still running or not, because that'll get you killed in Iraq if you don't know how to run. Yeah. So this is Chief. I'll probably wrap up Medina at Lackland Air Force Base probably next week. And oh yeah, I can talk about my promotion. Nothing really big, but be the way out of that place. So this Chief out. Remember, freedom is not free. Hug a vet, thank a vet. Sleep with a vet if you got that opportunity.